All right. Evening, everyone. Thank you so much for joining me. I haven't really got a plan for this evening, so I will kind of like play this by ear and get to questions as and when they come in, and then we'll give it whatever time we need to ensure that uh, you get value from it. Um, but yeah, I'm also going to be like sporadic next week. I'm traveling again. I'm back out to Dubai for a month next Monday, and in between me leaving next Monday, next week I've got meetings and work that I need to do kind of in London and all over the place. So the content might be a little bit sporadic next week, just to give a little bit of a heads up. But I have kind of been enjoying um, providing commentary on obviously all of the budget news. And that's literally, well, that's going to be not this next week, the week after, I believe on the Wednesday is the 30th. I'll be in Dubai at that point, but I will provide kind of like live reactions and then off the back of that provide kind of like a summary of what it all means. But I'm as in the dark as many of you are watching this. What I've tried to do is provide a little bit of commentary so that we can kind of at least keep up to date with what was is and has been rumored for the budget. But as always, we're just gonna have to find out. So yeah, all right. So Kane, welcome. Thank you so much for joining. If you can hear me clearly, if you could do me a favor and just put a one in the chat, that will be amazing. Like I said, I haven't got any specific plans in terms of anything to talk through on this live. We'll just play it by ear. If you do have questions, this will be the prime opportunity for you to ask questions. I think last week we had quite a few come through, which was great for engagement and stuff. So let's just see how this basically goes, really. So yeah, thanks for that, Kane. Yeah, because I'm always worried that sometimes when I do these lives, I've had it where the microphone is crackled. I've had it where it's really, really loud, and people say it's too loud. And if I dial that back down, it's too low, so people can't hear. So it's sometimes a little hard to kind of get the right settings for this. Sane, good to see you as well, mate. Thank you so much for joining, my friend. Um, actually, I do have a question for you guys. How are you guys all feeling about kind of like budget and just generally how things are going? Um, I think it's been a bit of a tumultuous roller coaster since obviously the election. Feels like we've had a lot of like instability starting to creep in. And like the markets have been okay. Gold has started to kind of like trickle up, but and oil prices have started to trickle up as well. I'm often getting asked from people, "Oh, you should be buying gold and all that kind of stuff." And I'm like, yeah, well, where we are right now, probably, yeah. I wouldn't be surprised if gold doesn't go through another high at the moment. But how are you feeling about everything, especially given the fact that we are still, on tenterhooks around the announcement and what's going to be done in the budget on the 30th? It's it's very uncertain. I'm kind of gauging my YouTube and gauging the Instagram DMs and comments, and I kind of get this sense of frustration. I get a sense of anger. Anger is one of the probably more pertinent words that I would use to describe how people are feeling right now. Um, I haven't seen any. I haven't really seen any optimism at all, which is weird because sometimes in these kind of situations you will have people that will um, kind of try and look at the brighter side, but I've not really seen that at all in the comment section. The fact that we've got inflation down to 1.7 is good news, and they will say that that's good news from an economic political point of view, well, from an economic point of view specifically, but it isn't translating to everyday life, I guess. And I think that's where people's frustration is, that we talk about all of this stuff, but really, what difference does it make? And in all honesty, a 1.7% inflation reading doesn't make any difference whatsoever. I mean, are they going to reduce rates in November for mortgages? People are saying it's nailed on that they will, but I'm not really too sure. I'm honestly not too sure. Um, it really depends on what's going to happen and what is happening right now in the Middle East. If that escalates, we could be in for a really, really rough ride. But that's an unknown at this point in time. So the question then becomes, okay, does Andrew Bailey and the Monetary Policy Committee kind of reduce the rates in November and then kind of wait and see what happens and how things develop? I think they want to be seen to be proactive in doing so because, to be fair, the target for inflation is 2%. If you get it below 2%, it's very, very hard to then justify why you did not reduce interest rates. So I can see them doing it because they want to be seen to be doing the right thing. But I'm sure in the back of their mind, they'll also be thinking about other things as well, including what's happening in the Middle East. So Martin's just saying here, let's put this up here actually. Probably never been so anxious about a budget in my life, hoping it won't be as bad as feared, and simply trying to block out a lot of the scary rumors at the moment. I'm secretly hoping that we've had so many rumors out that on the 30th, she just does maybe capital gains tax. I'm trying to think of the ones that I'm kind of okay with. I wouldn't want them to touch things around pensions, but I can see how it's easily implemented and would draw in more money, and it would impact the more wealthy people if she did the reduction to the tax-free cash element on pensions. Um, capital gains tax, yeah. Pensions, yes. Tax-free cash. I really want to see the ISA thing come in. I wouldn't want to see that. I wouldn't necessarily want to see pensions come into IHT. But then again, it would definitely draw more people into inheritance tax land so they can get more money that way. Um, I'll tell you what I have noticed though. There isn't really any kind of like, because normally in the budget, like you would typically have a give and take. I wonder what their give is going to be. So I've not heard a lot in the news. There has not been any rumors at all about any gives in any way, shape, or form. I know that they were talking about HS2 possibly having the legs to go. I think it was up to crew. I think it was. Now that would be a positive thing if they could find a way of doing that, because that is long term going to help with economic growth, which is one of their key things, right? That's one of their key priorities. But I wonder what the gives are going to be, if there are going to be any gives. And I wonder if we're going to hear anything around actual policies for economic growth, or is it just going to be all take? I mean, at this point, it's anyone's guess. What do you think? Kenny's also saying here, cost of living is still hurt, but looking forward to Labour's first budget, mate. You're probably one of the optimists, mate. I think. I'm not sure that I'm looking forward to the budget, if I'm honest. Yeah, I'm not sure that I'm going to be looking forward to the budget. The thing is with CGT, it's a double-edged sword, isn't it? CGT, because CGT, if you're in property, if you're not in tax-efficient investments, the CGT is going to hit you. And whether they increase the capital gains rate tax, the tax rates, or whether they tweak the allowances. I mean, look, the allowance is already £3,000. So what else are they going to do, really, to be honest? How far can they take it? 1,500? Get rid of it altogether? I mean, who knows? Who knows what they're going to do? But I think for people who are kind of like investing, this is my problem. The wealthy people of the world will borrow against their assets, will borrow against their investment portfolios, those of them who have the means to do so. But it's precisely those fuckers that we should be targeting, to be honest. We should be targeting those type of people who have the ability to borrow against their investments, to borrow against their assets. And because the money then becomes a loan, that it isn't taxable. Um, That's the type of kind of like person I think that we should be targeting to pay a little bit more. And like, excuse me, I think I made a video about, I think it was about 2 months ago or so, where we started to kind of look at what Spain did, where they introduced like a 1.7% tax on, I think it was households with a net worth of over 2 or 3 million euros. And they did it for 1 year. And they drew in quite a lot of money, but it was done under the agreement that we're only going to tax this for 1 year because we need a little bit of money. We need your help. And a lot of people are like, okay, this is cool. This is fine. Not a problem at all. For 1 year, we're happy to pay that, 1.7%. Why don't we have something like that here? Like, why do we not target the up uber wealthy with a small tax for a year, maybe two? Why don't they do that? I mean, I'm not in government, so I can't argue as to why, but you would think that these are the type of things that should be discussed, should be debated, should be put forward. But it just feels like they're going to, increase capital gains tax, which will impact ordinary investors, normal people who, are probably at a large portion of people are still kind of like, working really, really hard and are investing to grow some form of future wealth. And now being told that, capital gains and any gains that you get on your investments, once you cash in, you've got to pay even more to the government. I mean, it's just ridiculous. I mean, it's one of those things where we talked about the fact that, you work, you get taxed. You buy things, you get taxed. You buy homes, you get taxed. There isn't anything that we're not taxed on. And then if you are diligent enough to build assets, to build wealth, you do all the right things, you want to pass it on, your beneficiaries get taxed. I mean, you want to draw an income from the money that you've built up over the years that you were taxed on anyway. You're going to have to pay tax anyway, again. Like, you can understand how people are getting like disillusioned and a little bit furious about, you know, please make this make sense. And then you start thinking about how this then compares to places like Dubai, you know, 0% income tax, 9% corporation tax for businesses. The government doesn't necessarily need to tax citizens because the economy itself is money generating. And it's really unique in the way they think about this. Is, if you can attract the right kind of people because you have a 0% personal tax, these people come over with their assets. They then spend their money, which then helps the economy even more, helps that wealth kind of be distributed because people are spending that money. It's a really interesting way of thinking. And they have the capital to do it though, I guess. It's very, very interesting. Sounds just saying, very anxious. Every step out cost me money. Mate, trust, you can't leave the house without it costing you money. You can't. You get in your car, that costs money. I mean, I was listening to a podcast earlier on, and they were saying that there's very, very few things we can do now where if you think about just leaving the house, it's not going to cost you money in this country. And they're right. If you wanted to do something, if you wanted to plan an event, plan something to do something with some friends, there's not much you could do beyond just going for a walk that isn't going to cost you money. Why is that? I mean, we're so kind of like structured to monetize as much as we possibly can. Andrew's saying here, do you think inheritance tax limit will be cut? Good question. If you're believing the rumors right now, there are two things that are being considered. They're either going to up the inheritance tax rate. I made a video like maybe 6 weeks ago that the rumored rate was going to be 54.4%. This week, reporting it was 50%. They could do that, or they could reduce the threshold. So you have your nil rate band threshold at 325,000. You've got residential property, 175,000 is a half million for a single person. For a married couple, you times that by 2, that's 1 million. They could do the reduction in the threshold as well. one of the articles I was reading was saying they're probably looking at both, which would just be horrendous. I mean, it won't go down well, but what are we going to do? That's the thing, right? What would we do? Wasn't it? I think it was last year or so that when in France, the government suggested doing some. I think that was it. They were suggesting to push back the retirement age in France. People protested. Like, that wouldn't happen here, and I don't know whether or not, I can't remember or not, because I didn't really follow it to its conclusion. But I think the French government had to concede and be like, okay, right, maybe we need to rethink this, or we need to, you know, debate this a little bit more. But it, our state pension age is going back. It's going back. It's 66 right now. It's going to go up to 68 soon, and then beyond that, it's going to go to 71. So you're going to have that happen, and then you're going to have pensions come into inheritance tax, and then you're going to also have a reduction in the threshold for inheritance tax and possible increase to inheritance tax rate. And or, boy, I mean, what are you going to end up with? Who are you going to, what are you doing it all for? Like, you might as well just spend all, and I hate saying this because I'm a financial channel, and that's not what I believe in my heart, because it isn't financially prudent to do so. But you can definitely kind of resonate with people who would say, just spend all your money, enjoy it, and then, see what happens. I mean, I had a comment on Instagram to that effect the other day. I'm just going to spend all the money and let the state look after me. I'm like, well, good luck with that, because the state might not be able to afford to to look after you. But I can kind of, I can understand the sentiment when you think about all of these things. But to answer the question, they might do that, and they might cut the thresholds. They might even increase the rate for inheritance tax. We're going to have to find out. I think they'll do one over the other. I don't think they'll be ballsy enough to do both of them. I think that would just be a little bit too much. David saying biggest mistakes was leaving too long for the budget after the election. Yeah, I mean, the budget is always around about this time anyway. So I don't know whether they had. I mean, yes, they probably could have done it a little bit sooner. Um, But what they have done is they've allowed speculation to fester, and they fed a lot of the speculation as well, which kind of still leads me to believe that to a certain extent they've allowed all of these things to come out, and on the day it won't be as bad. But I said this on Friday. I've been hearing people say, well, they've got 5 years, they've got a 5 year term. So if they're going to do anything that's going to be hugely unpopular and unpalatable, they're going to do it now, because in a year, 2, 3, 4 years' time, it is going to be completely forgotten that they've done that. And I think we saw this with the Tories in 2010. They did exactly the same thing, and it was all forgotten. So if they're going to do something that is going to be extremely unpopular with the nation, they're going to do it. They're going to do it on the 30th, because it's the prime time to do it. They've just got in. It's the first budget. It will be forgotten soon. People will adjust. People will move on. So yeah, I mean, fingers crossed, mate. Someone just saying here, I think ISIS will be hit. Yeah, I hope not. I really, really hope not. But who knows? Any chance of an update to the lifetime ISA? I know there was a rumors in the previous budget, and feels more and more obsolete, particularly for those in London. If you're talking about the increase to the lifetime ISA limit, that's not going to happen, mate. I've heard nothing around that. And given where we are right now, I would be very, very surprised if they push the limits to the ISA to go beyond the 425,000. In fact, I reported it on Friday in the video that one of the headlines was that they weren't going to be maintaining that limit for London at 425,000, which meant that for first-time buyers in London, you would have to basically pay £2,500 in stamp duty. So I don't think that that's going to be looked at all. I'll be very, very surprised. Be very, very surprised. It's supposed to save them 2 billion. It's supposed to make them 2 billion quid if they didn't maintain that uplift to 425, which the Tories brought in. So because we're in such dire need of money, I can't see that they'll touch this in the budget at all. Yeah, isn't that true? Talking about, that small percentage tax, maybe for a 12-month period. The uber wealthy do own the political class. The political class are the uber wealthy as well. Sometimes they're all in each other's pockets. They're all in each other's kind of like friendship groups and stuff. And money wields influence. So it's the sad truth, unfortunately. Cam, the stocks and shares ISA is like the only way normal working people can use to eventually escape the rat race. If they start taxing and changing, that we are screwed. Yes, I mean, mate, my sincere hope is that they don't touch it. I don't want them to touch the limit, the 20K limit, because it's been frozen for long enough anyway. I don't want them to touch that, and I don't think they'll touch that. There's been no indication that they would touch it. The only thing that they have kind of said, which is kind of a money grab, and it is the bigger money grab, is to basically cap the growth, the tax-free growth on the ISA at £100,000. And I don't know, I don't think that they would dare to do that retrospectively, but they would probably do it from the next tax year. But thinking about that, how would they implement that actually? How would they implement? It's problematic to try actually to implement because, and again, I don't work in policy or anything like that, but if they cap it and say, look, you can't have more than £100,000 in growth tax free, the cap is £100,000. To some extent, you would think that for then anyone who wants to take out money from their ISA in the future, that £100,000 limit would apply. And so implementing this in my head has some retrospective consequence anyway, because if anyone's got a decent amount in an ISA, I don't know. I don't know. My head's just spinning right there, but uh, they would have to apply it from a future date. And I would probably say it would be from the new tax year in 2025. And they will say if you have an existing ISA, all your gains will remain tax free, but from this day onwards, and they would have to start the clock from zero. Any gains that you get over £100,000, well, you'll still have the £100,000 limit, but anything over would then have to be taxed. I don't know how they'll do it, mate, but you're right. Stocks and shares ISA. I mean, they stocks and shares ISAs are going to become more and more important now, even if they did cap it at £100,000, because the tax-free status is going to be the main. It's going to be one of a few tax havens left. I mean, what do we have? We've got pensions, but you can't access that until you're 55. We've got ISAs. You do have national premium bonds, but then it's not really the same. To be fair, it's kind of like almost a cash thing. I mean, then you have to get into the more complex tax strategies. The EIS is the VCTs, but they carry their own risk. There's no point. And like wealthy, like when I was advising, we had some wealthy like footballers who would do things and wealthy CEOs who would do things, were getting massive bonuses, and they'll put a load of money into these types of vehicles. And yeah, you're going to save yourself, 40% on tax. But if the money's going into an investment, which is extremely volatile, the performance isn't that great. If you're losing 30%, is it really worth it? Yeah, you're going to get 40% back on the tax for the amount that you put in. But if you're losing 30% of the value of what you're investing, I mean, you're still 10% in positive territory. But I know I was at a conference this week, and I know that there are some of those vehicles right now that are down 40-ish percent. So if you've done one of those strategies and you're sat in one of those things, yeah, you saved yourself a bit of tax, got your tax back. But like you're pretty much net zero. So what's the point? So, I mean, and again, even those types of solutions are only going to be available to certain kind of like people, because you as a retail investor can't go on Vanguard, you can't go on Fidelity or Hargreaves Lansdown and go and pick those up. They have to be advised. So you have to go see a financial advisor. And some of the financial advisors will not see you if you don't have X amount. I've got friends who won't see anyone with less than £500,000. So you're still looking at that certain kind of like level. But for the uber wealthy, yeah, they will use strategies like that. But If they go, actually, you know what, I've got 4 million quid or 2 million quid or a million quid, portfolio over there. It's doing pretty good. I've got other assets lying around here. I need 50 grand. They just borrow against the asset, borrow against the portfolio. It's a loan, no tax. Thank you very much. Happy days. So there will always be kind of like these instruments that the wealthy are going to be able to use, regardless of what happens here. But for normal people, you're not going to have access to those. So you're kind of like scuppered a little bit. What do you think happens to the existing EMI schemes for employee share options? Good question. I can't answer that because I don't actually know, mate. I don't know. Um, yeah, I don't know what's going to happen, mate. To a certain extent, it's going to be down to the company to kind of interpret whatever changes come in to see how much it's going to impact. And some companies might take different approaches. I can't give you a confident answer on that, mate. So I was asking, when does the change take place next financial year? Yeah. So anything that they announce on October 30th is likely going to come in the new tax year. So April the 6th, 2025. Unless, I mean, look, Jeremy Hunt in the autumn budget last year, if you remember, that's when he did the first round of national insurance contribution, that reduction, that 2% reduction, and he made that like literally come in almost instantaneously. They could do that for some of these, and if they do, it would just tell you how desperate they are and how much of a hole we're in. But I would just assume naturally that it wouldn't come in until the new tax year on April the 5th. Yeah, so anything they announce will have to be ratified before it can actually be implemented and stuff like that. So I still have to do some rounds, either in the House of Lords or House of Commons, to actually get through. They want to encourage growth and investment. I can't see them messing around with ISAs. I mean, to be honest, mate, they actually got rid of the Brit ISA. The Brit ISA, which was going to be an additional £5,000 to go onto your ISA allowance, but specifically into UK companies, so the FTSE 100, FTSE 250, that's gone. That's scrapped. That would have been an engine for growth for sure, because it would have seen money pump into those companies, which would have helped the economy. The problem with the Brit ISA was that it was very much UK centric, and we're just not an attractive place to invest right now, especially when you think about the global markets. America's still top dog, so their performance is still pretty decent, which is going to be interesting when it comes to whether or not that is going to be a point for the election next month in November for them. I haven't really seen it as a political point being used because their economy is going pretty well. The markets are going pretty well. So when you look at it in you look at the UK market in context of the wider global market, we're just not attractive. Like, why would you invest here when the S&P 500 is doing really, really well? Other territories are doing really, really well. Maybe not Europe, maybe not Germany, but other areas in the world are doing well. Why would you invest in the UK? So they did scrap the Brit ISA. So yeah, sometimes it sometimes I would love to be a fly on the wall just to hear the conversations that they have and how they come to certain decisions. I think the main thing that they're looking for is they're looking for external investment. A rate cut would definitely help for sure in November, because it would mean that companies would be able to borrow money at lower rates and then invest, all that kind of stuff. But that it's not just about one thing. It's a connection of things, like a spider's web. Everything is interconnected in some way, shape, or form. So we'll see. Brad saying no one in government has talked about what to buy a 100k ISA cap. It's an idea from the Resolution Foundation that hasn't been taken up. You don't know that. Nobody knows that. Most of these suggestions come from the Resolution Foundation. They will come from the Institute of Financial of Fiscal Studies. These think tanks are the ones that are there to kind of give ideas or, recommendations to the government on policy and what the impact will be from an economic point of view and for the general public. So all of these ideas, there'll be tons of ideas that will be in there, but it's things that they will either consider. Some of them they might take up, some of them they may not. Who knows? But there are lots of ideas floating around at the moment. All of these ideas around capital gains tax, all of these ideas around inheritance tax, all of these ideas will be coming from sources looking at how can we generate more tax revenues from the current population. And they'll all submit suggestions of which the government will say, well, this one will work, that one won't work, this will be hard to implement, this might be one for the future, so on and so forth. There are so many rumors right now. Who knows? Nobody knows. But we know that it has been reported that it's something they're looking at. Hopefully they don't touch that, because I don't want them to touch that, but who knows? On inheritance tax, they might cut the agricultural land exemption. They're thinking about that, and they're also thinking about business property relief as well. They're looking at cutting that. That might stop billionaires buying up land, making land too expensive for genuine farmers to farm commercially. Yes, that is possible, and that one wouldn't be too bad. The one for things like business property relief and stuff, I know some entrepreneurs, business owners, who would be very, very upset if that were to come in. Because it doesn't necessarily, their argument is, and I agree with it to a certain extent, is it doesn't necessarily foster an entrepreneurial spirit. And anything that means that for an entrepreneur who has been lucky enough to start a business, grow a business, employ people, make it profitable, scale that business, and then get to a point where, okay, the business needs to go to the next level. So it's either sold, they exit, and then the tax on the proceeds of that sale is penalized even more than they are right now. That's unpopular for a lot of entrepreneurs right now. And I can see the point of view. Like, starting a business is not easy. I mean, there are no guarantees. You're taking huge risk. I know people who have remortgaged their homes to start a business. Some people get it right, some people don't get it right. I have a friend of mine right now. He has sunk near enough £200,000 into his business, not doing well. He's on thin ice. And there are many people like him who take the chance at a business, take the chance at doing something that they're passionate about, at a dream. It doesn't work out. And for those people, they have to deal with the financial consequences. So, should there not be a reward for entrepreneurs who are able to weather that storm, who are able to fight through it, employ people, have businesses go to the next level in a sale, not to be, they would say, punitively taxed? It's a very, very controversial topic, I would say, but I can definitely see where people come from. Running my own business, me running my business, I can see that it's hard, it's stressful, mate. Like, freaking hell. I wouldn't go back to a 9 to 5, but put it this way: 9 to 5 is so much easier. It is so much easier. Like, when I was in a 9 to 5, I worked long hours, and to be honest, if I look back in hindsight, if I was in 9 to 5, I would not work those hours. Absolutely not, because I don't have to. I do not have to. I can clock off at 5 o'clock and I know I'm getting paid. I know that I can take 28-day holidays a year and I'm getting paid. I know that if I'm sick, I'm getting paid. Like, mate, if I was in a 9 to 5, I would not be working the 12 hours that I used to work. I'd literally clock off at 5 o'clock. That's me. I'm done. Take the money, get some really nice work-life balance, book holidays, all that kind of stuff. Fantastic. Absolutely do that. Like, working for yourself is a constant It's a constant thing. I'm always working in some way, shape, or form. Always. Now, don't get me wrong, I enjoy what I do, but I'm constantly working. And I always know that, hang on a second, if I don't work like this week, I don't make any money. So I've got a mortgage to pay. I've got all of this stuff to pay. I'm like, okay, wow. If I do take 28 days off within my business, I'm like, hold up a second, I'm not getting paid. So basically, you have to really think about your cash flow in the business. You have to really think about the work that you're doing, how you're prospecting for work, the projects that you're working on, how you're invoicing it. You've got to think about corporation tax. You've got to think about NI contributions, pension contributions. You've got to think about everything. Like, it's hard, man. Like 9 to 5 that's easy man's land, really, to be honest. And if you're working a 9 to 5 and you're working long, long hours, like I know sometimes they'll be like, you got to do the hours that are required for you to be successful at the job. But I would strongly encourage you, like, put your foot down sometimes and be like, no. And that's uncharacteristic of me to say because I'm very much about hard work. But one thing that I learned really, really hard, like harshly, was, and this was just before I started this was back in 2018. I cracked my ribs. I ended up having pneumonia. And I didn't know I had pneumonia at the time. It wasn't until I went to the hospital. They were like, look, you've got really bad pneumonia. But I was still going out doing meetings that week. And like literally it got to bearing in mind, this happened on the weekend. So I think it happened like on a Saturday evening, Sunday, Monday. I could still feel this discomfort, but breathing wasn't right. Got to the Thursday night and I could not lie down to sleep because I couldn't take a full breath. And I couldn't sleep. I had to sit up in an armchair to sleep. And I woke up in the morning. I was like, look, I've got this golf event I need to go to. I've got some clients I need to go see. I'm going to see them. I'm going to come back and I'm going to go to the hospital. And my missus was like, nah, no, 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 no. We're taking you to the hospital right now. And I was like, okay, okay, let's go. Because at this point, my breathing was like really shallow. Got to the hospital. They did check the chest X-ray. They were like, "Listen, you got pneumonia across both of your lungs, over half of the capacity. If you went to work today, you'll be dead by the time you would have come here this evening or this afternoon." And that was a wake-up call because at the end of the day, any company you work for, regardless of whether you're high up or low down, if you kick the bucket, they'll advertise your job the next week. And there's me. And that is just a fundamental reality. So there's me not looking after my health because I've got to go see this client on a Friday on a golf course to talk about some investment that he wants to do, where they would just replace me. Yeah, they would have paid out like 5 times my salary to my missus, but the job will be advertised in a week. And like we need perspective sometimes when it comes to 9 to 5, and the world is not conducive to trying to look after or seek work-life balance these days because the cost of living and all that kind of stuff. And unfortunately, employers do they take advantage of that fact as well. But yeah, entrepreneurship, business owners, they would not like to see the whole business property relief being targeted at all. So hopefully we'll see what happens. If they cap ISAs, it's going to totally stop people saving and investing. That's the main reason why in ISAs, to protect us from tax so we can grow our wealth future. I agree with you, mate, 100%. I really do agree with you. Here's what I think will happen, though. I think we have short memories. And I think because the government is the government and they make the rules and be like, listen, the cap is now this. I think what will happen is people will still just continue to invest in ISAs because there's nowhere else to go. There is nowhere else to go. There are no alternatives, mate. If you don't put it in ISA, you put it in a general investment account, you're gonna get it lumped by CGT, lumped by dividends tax. You take an income from it, you're gonna get lumped with income tax. So they're just going to narrow the bandwidth within the tax efficient accounts to squeeze you even further. But unless you have options to be like, oh, you know what, I'm off, sod this, I'm gone, there's nothing we can do. And unfortunately, that's the reality for a lot of the nation. Can't just get up and go. You know, there aren't any options. So we kind of adapt. We sit with it. We adapt, and yeah, if you get to the point where you do get over £100,000 in growth, I mean, look, let's celebrate that because that's fantastic news. But then, yeah, you got to pay tax on anything over, which means that they get their grubby little mitts on your hard-earned cash again, which is the bit that infuriates people and infuriates me. Just even saying it, it infuriates me. Like, we need to stop them from getting their hands on our money. It's stupid. It's absolutely outrageous. It really, really is. So the more I think about it, the more it really kind of like ticks me off because you're taxed on everything. Like, honestly, if we thought about the fact that if we could eliminate all of the taxes, or actually, let's put it this way: if we could do a calculation, I might try and do this actually, and make this a subject of a video. For every pound you earn, how much do you think you get to retain after you've paid the tax on the amount that pound ended up being? So you've been taxed on it, you get a pound, and then you're going to be taxed on all the purchases that you make with that pound. So how much of a pound can you retain, even if you were super super savvy financially? How much of a pound could you retain, considering all the other taxes that go on things that we buy? I bet you it wouldn't be a lot. 30p, if that. Some people might say that's good, but Jesus Christ, you've already paid tax on it to have a pound. I mean, how are you supposed to build any kind of wealth in those kind of circumstances? And obviously, I talk about all of the practical things day to day from a financial planning point of view and personal finance perspective, which have made a huge, huge difference to my landscape right now. But like, it's taken work to get there, and I've only been able to do it because I've had to learn the hard way, and because I actually work in the industry, so I kind of have a different perspective on it. If you don't work in the industry, you haven't had maybe the benefit of some of the things that I've learned on seen during my 18-year career, how are you supposed to know? It's literally like trying to play chess with like a grand chess master, and you're kind of like a newbie. You're going to get wiped out in like 2 moves, 3 moves. You have no idea who you're up against. It's absolutely bonkers. And this stuff, we lobby for them to teach it in school, and the response is, "No, we think it's adequately catered for under PHSE." No, it's not, and we've shown you evidence that it isn't. It's just, and I don't like conspiratorial thinking, but at some point you have to kind of start thinking, well, hang on a second, there's a reason for all of this stuff, and just it's freaking crazy. The bottom line is the country is well and truly bankrupt. Who to tax? PAYE citizens, and God forbid, never big corporations. Yeah, I would definitely agree with that. I did read something the other day that Amazon, for the first time, has paid tax in the UK. And I can't remember how much they paid, but it was not a huge amount of money. Just think about that for a second. Just think about that for a moment. Amazon, where they've got factories. Where they got the factory? They got the factory on the M1, operating here for years. They've only just paid tax, corporation tax, in this country for the first time. That's mad. It's absolutely outrageous. Now, the argument is that obviously they employ people, and those people pay tax. Those people buy homes, and those people, take the paycheck that Amazon pays them, that then gets spent in the economy. That's their argument back. But to think that based on all of the money, that the turnover for Amazon, they've only just paid corporation tax for the first time. It's pretty freaking mad. to be honest. But from an economic point of view, that's how they get Amazon to have warehouses here, which then turns into jobs in the local economy, which then turns into people being able to buy homes, send their kids to school, spend money. Do you see the vicious cycle? You see how messed up it is, right? And the argument will be, well, if they didn't come here, they would go somewhere else, which is probably true. A lot of these companies are going to be setting up in places like Dubai. Yeah, 9% corporation tax. Are you kidding me? Versus 20%. Are you absolutely kidding me? If you think about the turnover for some of these companies as well, which will be, in the hundreds of millions, if not billions, and they're making good profit margin. Some of these companies, what, 25, 30% profit margin, which is freaking awesome. Imagine that. So you're making a $300 million profit on like the operations in one part of the world. Do you want to pay 20% corporation tax on 9% corporation tax? Now, honestly, what would if the roles are reversed and it was you, what would you want to pay? 20% or 9%? Forget the moral argument for a moment, but just plain black and white, it's put in front of you. If I make $300 million or £1 million in profits, I can come to the UK where I pay 20% corporation tax, or I can go to another place where I pay 9% corporation tax. Common sense will tell you, I'll take the 9%, thank you very much. And it's against that kind of backdrop that the government has to be innovative in trying to attract companies to come here. So they do that and say, well, actually, you know what? Pay zero tax. But we require you to invest 4 billion in X town's local economy by building and employing people. That's the trade-off. It's almost an impossible kind of like hole to square, right? Because you need them to pay more money in taxes. But if you impose that and they don't invest, you don't get the job opportunities, which brings down the unemployment rate, less people reliant on the government for benefits. You don't get the local benefit on the economy, house purchases. Do you see what I mean? You see what I mean? So like the politicians are in a very, very difficult position, which is where we need real, like proper leadership and economic ideas. We need ideas because I don't know. It feels like the UK has lost its shine right now. So why would companies come here? Why would companies come here? There was an article that I was reading yesterday, and I was thinking of actually doing a video on this. Let me see if I can find this. It was really, really shocking, and we kind of spoken about this on the channel last week, or was it the week before last? They were talking about the number of let me find it. It was something along the lines of the number of 18 to 24s who, and they're talking about men specifically who are unemployed, who are doing nothing, and they were showing the graph and the trajectory of, if you went back maybe 30 odd years, there were more men in the workforce, and with that earning potential, all that kind of stuff, and less women, and so on. The lines have kind of crossed and inverted. So there's less men actively employed and more women. The women are really, really thriving, like going great guns, right? And it feels like there's a tilt the other way. And that is a problem. And it's not just a problem because, well, poor men aren't doing well. Poor young men aren't doing very well at all. And there's so many reasons for that: mental health, all this kind of stuff. But it's also connected to the story that we had again a couple of weeks ago, and the fact that for the first time in the UK since the 1960s, we had more deaths than births in the UK. So if you think about that story and that conversation around less young men, 18 to 24, being in being economically active in terms of jobs and more women prospering, going great guns, that presents a real problem for the UK and the UK economy in the future. Because not only are you talking about the productivity of citizens generating income, tax revenue, all this kind of stuff, which is important for the economy, you're also then thinking about the sustainability of the population, which is where the argument for immigration comes in, legal migration comes in. Because if we're not, giving birth to enough kids to keep the population going, that's going to be a problem later on. As this generation then become older, and this is what we're kind of seeing in the pensions arena right now, we're going to have more pensioners than there are going to be working people being productive in the economy to pay for the state pension for that demographic. Those two things that I just mentioned there potentially have the ability to exacerbate productivity problems into the future. So I think I think we've got a really, really, really difficult concoction of issues to get to the bottom of in the country. I think we're definitely seeing the culmination of what feels like a generation that feels that they've been left behind and the consequences of that and the impact it has. And simultaneously, we're also seeing the wealth gap increase significantly because of it, which is such a bizarre thing to say, but I think it's true. Um, who knows what's going to happen next? We need inspiring leadership, is what I would say. We need inspiring leadership, and unfortunately, at this point in time, I don't think that our political class is necessarily inspiring for the younger generation. What are the initiatives, the incentives to get that group of lads into employment and excited to do something that they feel will allow them to buy a home, to have a good quality of life. Like, these are all fundamental questions, right? If you can't answer that simple question, why should anyone stay? Why should anyone stay? It's not like there aren't other places you can go. There are plenty of places you can go where you can have a better quality of life and you can feel as though you're going to work to be able to better yourself for the future, in opposed to being taxed literally right into the grave for every bit of your hard-earned cash they can get their hands on. It's just totally unsustainable. Yeah, someone's just saying here they don't want to teach because it's because they don't want us to be rich. You know what? Again, I don't like conspiratorial thinking, but the more and more and more I kind of like pay attention to some of the stuff that that I see going on in conversations that I keep having, part of me is coming around to actually believe in that. And I don't like to believe that because, again, I think if you believe that, I feel like, for me, let me speak for me, I feel like I would be giving away part of my own power to, prove circumstances wrong and the odds wrong. But at the same time, if the system is stacked against you, you get to a point where you have to really dig deep to get past it. And I think for a lot of people, the point at which digging deep got you through is no longer the same, because the goalpost keeps being moved and moved and moved. So you're already digging deep. But what they're basically saying is, well, you fucking better dig deeper because, hey, you're on your own, essentially, which is pretty sad. Didn't the Conservatives put corporation tax back up after cutting it because it didn't raise extra revenue by cutting it? Instead, focus on improving infrastructure and skills. Yeah, I mean, corporation tax is 20% right now. Was it higher than that? I think it was at some point. I can't remember. Yeah, I mean, but the thing is, mate, and this is the golden question. The $1 million question is this: increase the taxes all you want, but if you're still going to be wasting that money, makes no freaking difference. And this is where people get pissed off and frustrated, because if you are going to make me pay all of these extra taxes and take more from me, are you actually going to spend it so things get better? I'll ask you, if the answer to that question was yes, and you realize, okay, it's only short-term pain, would you be happy to pay it? I would be, for sure. And I think most people would be. The problem is we've got so much wastage, so much inefficiency, so much what in other parts of the world we would call corruption, and let's call it what it is, corruption, that they inflict more pain and no one has any confidence that it's going to get any better. And I think that's where the impasse is, because what's the point? If you're going to tax us all this money, you're going to do all of this stuff, but you're not going to, it's not going to make any difference. Why the hell bother? Like, I'll keep my money, thank you very much, because people need it. People do need their money. Actually, let's get this one for Norman. 1 second. Yes, but these big corporations have created an uncompetitive market where they give an illusion of freedom of choice, but while sinking the high street and so-called real economy. I'd agree with that. And I think Amazon is a prime example of that as well. Amazon is probably one of the biggest culprits for what's happened to the high street when it comes to just general stores now, because they made it so easy. Order it, get it the following day. And that's, that's sometimes how the market works. But at the same time, the argument could be made that there should have been some kind of policies brought in from an economic point of view to protect the high street, to protect the small shop on the corner. But it feels like the government hasn't necessarily been interested in that, because, again, in trying to attract a company like Amazon to invest or put a warehouse in the UK, they have to then weigh up, well, the corner store on the edge of St. John Street might get impacted by this, but well, that's one job, one man, maybe 5 people, family business. Amazon's going to come over here, invest 4 billion quid, and it's going to create 100,000 jobs. That's what they're thinking. And so it becomes a numbers game. And in those numbers, the little people go missing and get overlooked, because they're looking at the big numbers and what they deem to be a wider impact. But when you really boil it down to its essence and you look at the scope of Amazon, yes, they create jobs, but how many businesses did they put out of business? And like Jeff Bezos is known for being ruthless, known for being ruthless. You look back at this issue when Amazon was selling books, the fact that he would intentionally wipe out small bookstores, like intentionally do that. He's known for being ruthless. And so when you look at the picture like that, have we been hoodwinked? Has the political class or the politicians specifically been hoodwinked and kind of blindsided by the fact of these are big corporations, we really, really need them, and we're not going to put any guardrails in at all? Because you could argue quite confidently that they are guilty of that for sure. And all the while pay no tax, no corporation tax whatsoever. But is it worth the trade-off for the jobs that they create? Liz Truss was right all along to lower taxes and raise vocational skills for young people. Listen, I made a video and I got slated for this when she did her budget. I made a video saying it wasn't all bad. There were some really good things in there. And I stand by that to today. But if you go look back at that video, which is what, almost 2 years now, probably about 2 years, just coming up 2 years now, people were slating me, being like, oh, you don't know what you're talking about, you're an idiot. And I'm like, no, there were some bits of the budget that were actually really, really good. I just don't think that it was received well. And I don't think it was communicated well. And I don't think that she did the work required to ensure that the Office of Budget Responsibility and the people that really, really mattered to kind of make it land properly, I don't think that she did the adequate legwork with those kind of groups, where because there was so much kind of like fanfare over the Tory kind of like struggle for who the next leader was going to be. I think there was so much fanfare around it that no matter what happened, it was always going to be delivered as this disastrous thing, completely overlooking some of the good things in there. Now, don't get me wrong, like she was talking about borrowing more money and not raising taxes. I mean, if you look at that from just any economic point of view, people are going to be worried about that. You're going to borrow more money and you're not going to raise taxes. I mean, this is where we are right now, right? We're talking about raising more taxes because ultimately it doesn't matter who you are. If the economic outlook is you're going to borrow more money and you're not increasing tax revenues to pay down that debt, it's going to be an issue. Just simple, it's simply how it works. But yeah, it's who knows. I don't know. Hindsight is a beautiful thing. We don't know what would have been if that budget wasn't received in the way that it was. I'm leaving for Italy for next month and can't wait. I've been seeing more and more content online where people are talking about, you'll get paid X amount of money to move to this place, and I'm like, huh? But who knows? I think Italy is actually one of them. To be fair, like there are certain places you can move in Italy where you can buy like a property for like a quid, but you've got to renovate the property over a period of time. Now, how much you would have to put into that? It would be perfect for someone who maybe has a little bit of cash behind them, buy it for a quid. Maybe you want to sink in, 50, 70 grand into a place. Boom, you've got a really nice place, but it's in Italy. And it might be in deep rural Italy where there's a language difference and all this kind of stuff. So there's always a few things to consider. The freeze on income tax thresholds and fiscal drag is not understood by most people. May amen. Amen. Like that little thing right there will pull so many more people into higher tax brackets that it's one of those stealth things, right? We're not going to touch income tax rates. So don't worry about, the rate, the interest, the rate of tax isn't going to pay. So you're fine on there. But actually, as you earn more money, you're going to go into the next bracket. And people are seeing that with their pay rises. Look at how much pay rises went up, earlier this year. And the Bank of England were looking at it thinking, okay, maybe we need to keep an eye on this. The public sector pay rises, what were they? I think it was like 10.9% across 2 years or something like that. That will draw some of them into a higher tax bracket. But again, it's one of those things that it's very, very subtle. It's a stealth tax. And again, we're not taught any of this stuff. So it happens. And people are just like, oh, I don't know what that means. Until you're in the next bracket. And it's like, hang on a second, how am I now here? I'm not earning. It doesn't feel like you're earning more money, but actually you are, and the government wants some of that cash you're earning now. What do you think the most wastage and inefficiencies in government spending is? Brad, mate, I couldn't even tell you. I do know someone who works for the NHS, and they were like, listen, the wastage in the NHS is mad, like mad. And he was very, very high up in a managerial position. And he was like, his job was to streamline. And he goes, the wastage is just unreal, just unreal. And if it's like that in the NHS, I'm sure there'll be similar levels of wastage in other parts of government as well. The crazy thing is, like, they're so desperate and they need to, because it's not just the fact that we need to fix public services and the NHS and stuff. Simultaneously, we also need to spend more money on defense. Like, our defense budget is nowhere near where it needs to be. And people will say, why should we have a defense budget and all that kind of stuff? I mean, look, let me just tell you right now, you're happy right now that Jeremy Corbyn did not win and got ousted from the Labour Party. Because can you imagine, in today's climate, Jeremy Corbyn, who was very, very anti-Trident, being in power, saying he will get rid of our nuclear deterrent with Russia and with everything that's happening in the world right now, we need to increase spending. And they know that. It's something that is already been spoken about, has been spoken about for a very long time. Just so happens with the escalation with Russia and Ukraine and what Russia has been up to has made that even more of a stark point. So they need to raise money for that. But where is it going to come from? Like, we don't have any money. We just don't. We don't have any money. Our debt is 100% of our GDP for the first time since the 1960s. It's like we're going to be over 100%, by the end of this parliament. They're talking about getting the deficit down. How are you going to get the deficit down? You'd have to introduce ridiculous spending cuts, and you would have to hike taxes significantly, which is what we're staring down the barrel of on the 30th. The question is, how far can they go before people are like, fuck this? But it's just a really, really sad situation. And the way I explained this on Instagram midweek, I was like, if you think about the UK, if I use this analogy, it's like it was once this really great ship out at sea, best of class, beautiful. And over the years, because they've not looked after it, they haven't kept it up to date, they haven't maintained it properly, it's now just this decrepit ship that's taken on water. And simultaneously, whilst it's taken on water, you're trying to patch it up and trying to maintain it. And all the while, the ship's going in the wrong freaking direction. So now you've got water coming on board. You're trying to patch it up. You're trying to refurb it, boost it all up. And at the same time, you need to turn the ship in another direction. How do you do it? How on earth do you do it? I don't know. I really, really don't know. And it's quite depressing when you talk about it in that way. It's really, really depressing when you talk about it in that way. I'll take the year of pain for a lifetime of growth. I would as well, mate. 100%. The Chinese government uses Amazon because it can only pay for lower postal cost, as they label themselves a developing economy. The second biggest economy in the world, in my definition, is not developing. Well, I agree with you there, mate. Listen, China will overtake America at some point, and that will happen quicker than we think. I mean, India is also another economy which, if you look at their growth over the past decade or so, has been mate, it's mad, absolutely mad. From where they've come from where they are right now, insane. The UK government has sold its steel plants, its gold reserves, and the balls too in the last 20 years. Mate, listen, how many of our infrastructure do we actually own? Heathrow isn't British owned. They were talking about selling Wembley the other year. Like, if you really think about like some of the most notable institutions in this country, most of them aren't even owned. They are not British owned. They're all foreign owned. Tell me how it makes sense. I can see the reasoning for it, but I feel like it's short termism. Tell me how it makes sense in the long term. It just doesn't. And again, this comes back to corruption. You know, who do we have at the wheel who decides, yeah, 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 we should sell Heathrow? Like, come on. Oh, mate, it makes your head. It really does make your head hurt. And the fact is, in these types of situations, palms are being greased. Palms are being greased. People are making money. People are looking after themselves and their own interests. Post World War II, we credit NHS, massive public housing and infrastructure. If we did it then, we can do it again. Public investment is what we need, but looks like Labour are going to austerity 2.0. Mate, I would agree with you 100% there. Mate. Look, obviously, this is all speculation at the moment, so we'll have to wait and see. I mean, I am an optimist. I'm a little pessimistic, to be honest, about the 30th, which isn't really like me, but I'm just hoping it's not going to be as bad as what they've made out. Because at least we can have some kind of like a light at the end of the tunnel, if you will. Let's have a look and see what else everyone's saying. Being a small business is the worst in the UK is the worst in the world. Sending items to literally the Republic of Ireland cost £10. Let's not talk about the USA. Yep, I would agree with you on that one, mate. Marginal deduction rates, particularly for graduates with loans outstanding, means they pay that pay rises must be more than double the inflation rate to maintain purchasing power, given the freeze of PA. Yes. Yep. I don't look. I know that I was listening to news the other day saying that universities are struggling at the moment, and they were saying that universities, some of them, are talking about increasing their fees, and it's like we get into this whole debate as to whether or not university is worth it or not, whether it's a waste of money. I didn't go to university. I wish that I could have, and I wish that I did. But do I wish that I was supposed to do medical? I was supposed to do medicine. because I was meant to be, I was going to be a surgeon, a neurosurgeon, because I was really good at in school, A levels and stuff, physics, biology, chemistry. But when I look at it now, in hindsight, I'm like, if I went to university, that's a 7-year degree, possibly longer. How much debt would I be graduating with? 40, 50K? And I'm like, would I really want that hanging over my head? Particularly as they're now saying that even going to university and paying for this degree does not even guarantee you that you would get the jobs that you would get 15, 20 years ago. And how many people do we know that go to university, never even use their degree and just end up working in freaking Tesco's or Starbucks or something like that? And you've got all of this debt, 25 grand's worth of student debt that you're now like, okay, I've got to pay this back. And part of me is like, okay, university should be subsidized in some way, shape, or form. It has to be, or free. It has to be. And no one can tell me that if you structured government finances, that you could not find a way to make that happen. Yes, it would cost a lot of money, and maybe you wouldn't be able to do it for completely free. And maybe you would have a thing where you look at certain key roles, specialisms that you need, and subsidize those. But surely then the upside is in upon graduation, and alongside that, you would have to set up maybe some postgraduate schemes, all that kind of stuff, where they can actually go into these jobs. They get into a decent paying job. The money comes back in taxes, surely, right? Because I, I find it really, really strange that we encourage people to go to university and there's no guarantee that they're going to get a job for what you've told them to go borrow all this money for. It's mad. Absolutely crazy, and then that's hanging over you. And no, unlike the way it was before, well, student loans would never impact how your eligibility for a mortgage. Now it does, because now they take in consideration how much you actually owe on student loans when they're looking at mortgage eligibility. I mean, please do me a favor. Like, come on, seriously, we need to fix it. If nothing changes, there will be a massive increase in wealth inequality, and the living standards of ordinary people will continue to decline. Mate, already is, mate. Already is. That boat has already bolted, already sailed, my friend. I just think it's just going to get worse and worse and worse and worse and worse if something isn't done soon. Um, yeah, I just think it will just get worse, and people will become more and more desperate. Um, yeah, the only industry Britain owns still is one, the Premier League. And I'm not even joking. Yeah, I mean, look, they'll probably try and freaking sell the Premier League if they freaking could. I mean, to be fair, the Premier League is still. I mean, if you think about all the leagues, the Premier League is the chef's kiss. I mean, look, Ligue 1 struggling to get sponsorship this year. I mean, you'll never have that with the Premier League ever. I mean, come on, like seriously, never. After that, after Premier League, what La Liga? La Liga is probably it'll be La Liga, then maybe Serie A after that. Actually, the Bundesliga is up there as well, to be fair, but I wouldn't put the Bundesliga before La Liga. I'll probably put Bundesliga third, and then Serie A fourth, and then you'll probably go to Ligue 1, which is the French league. But yeah, Premier League sits at the top of that for sure. London city could become like Mumbai, where you have extremely wealthy people living right next door to extremely poor people. Mate, I think we're already seeing that, to be honest, mate. If you look, mate, Canary Wharf and what's the neighborhood around Canary Wharf? Can't remember its name now. Can't remember its name now. But like literally, when I was in Canary Wharf, we had some kids in from that neighborhood, and it's like they look at Canary Wharf as I did years and years and years ago before I even got there, thinking, "Wow, but I don't belong there, and I'll never have a chance of getting there." It's mad. It's mad. But I think you're right. Brad, I wish it wasn't, mate. Like I said, I'm normally optimistic. I just find it really, really hard right now. I apologize if it comes across on the content, but I'm just like, I think sometimes we do have to ask hard questions though, because I think it's great to be optimistic, but at the same time, if sometimes you're seeing something that's like, hang on a second, what are you doing? Like sometimes you've got to be real with it, man. Sometimes you're just going to be like, hey, listen, this is going to be problematic. And hang on a second, how much of yeah, are we really down for this? We might not have a choice in it, but are we really, really down with this? We need to know what's happening to us or what is going to be done, so that we can better equip ourselves or at least be aware of what the implications are going to be. And that's really been my mission over the last month. But the more, mate, like I said, I'm generally optimistic, but it's just freaking hard sometimes, mate, when you're looking at it and thinking, what, like, why? You know, I'm pretty sure Andrew Bailey hinted to the Labour Party in the speech, don't you dare spend a lot. Yeah, I mean, who knows what's going to happen? We'll watch this space, mate. Oh yeah, you're saying when he announced the 0.25% interest rate. I mean, they did do some restructuring, which meant that they've got an extra 10 billion quid potentially. And the argument was they could have used that to reverse the winter fuel payment cut, but they're not going to do that. They're not going to do that at all. So, so I'm just saying, I'm going to end up taking back my student loan, investing in gold and silver on the stock market at this rate. Mate, I wouldn't blame you. Student loans is an extra 9% tax burden that has been forced on our generation. I had no idea what I was signing up for at 17. £200 a month for my career goes into a black hole. Yep. That's mad, isn't it? It's absolutely. And this is the thing, right? This is the thing that jumps out to me in what you just said there. And I can only relate it to how I felt when finally realized that when I first started my career and I had my first job at Royal Bank of Scotland, NatWest, how I felt when I realized that when they told me, "Oh, we can either pay this money into a pension or give you 25, or we can give you the money in your pay packet." And they never explained to me what their pension was. And it's a defined benefit pension. Foolishly took the money. I know exactly how you feel, because if you had known that, hang on a second, this is going to mean that you got to pay this back, and it's going to cost you £200 a month, like forever until it's all paid off, you probably would have thought very, very differently about the decision as to whether or not you were going to go to university or not. I know for a fact, if they said to me, we've got a pension, it's a defined benefit pension, which is going to guarantee you an income for life until you die, and your wife is going to get 50% of it. We can pay this money into it for you, or we can give you the cash. I'm like, no, fucking pay the money into the pension. Thank you very much. What am I going to do with an extra 25 quid? I'll tell you what I did with it. I went out on the weekends and it was beer money. Biggest mistake ever. It's one that I regret now, because it wasn't until probably about 15 years ago I realized, hang on a second, no, it's probably looked at that. Probably what, 11 years ago? 12, 11 years ago? I was like, hang on a second, that was a defined benefit pension. I'm just like, fuck. But again, they didn't explain it. And they didn't have the obligation to explain it either. It wasn't even in their interest from a corporate point of view to explain it. And that is sinister, because for them as a company, if I had paid that money in, whenever I retire, bearing in mind it will grow, the money will grow to a value. It would sit on their balance sheet as an amount they have to pay me every single month. So it has to be on their balance sheet, and they have to find that money every single year in revenue. It's money that they cannot invest into the growth of their business. So it wasn't in their commercial interest to tell me what a defined benefit pension was and what I would be forfeiting if I didn't, if I took the money in my pay packet. Didn't explain it. So I can understand exactly how you feel about that. So what it's saying, they're talking about talk of employee NI going up, but how much do you expect? Also, suggestion of 30% tax rate relief on pension contributions. Could these two measures see a rush to salary sacrifice for basic rate taxpayers? So I don't know how much they're likely to increase the employer NI. I've not seen numbers banded around for that. I think so. This is one that I wouldn't mind. So the whole pension relief, so the flat rate on the pension relief on your contributions, equalizing that at 30%. Actually, I think that would be good. That would kind of incentivize people because if you're a basic rate taxpayer, you know you're going to get 30% from the government. Actually, that's not bad. It's going to penalize people at the top end, but you know what? You'll be fine. They'll be fine. They'll be completely fine. So I think that would be good. But I'll tell you this, I have been speaking to people today who are still in the financial planning world. And mate, I was speaking to someone and they had a client who was liquidating a large investment portfolio, large investment portfolio. And I'm talking in the millions because they're like, listen, I'm not getting stung for more CGT, capital gains tax, than I need to be. So let's liquidate and see what happens. I think in that example, they could probably use bed and breakfast as a rule, bite back within 30 days if nothing changes. But people are acting already. So I am seeing also that people are taking things like their tax-free cash early, all that kind of stuff. So people are moving to kind of mitigate some of this stuff early before we even know what's happening, which to be honest, I don't blame them. I don't blame them at all. This is very, very true. I mean, look, the American economy is doing extremely well. Oh wow, we've been on it for an hour and 21. Time has flown. Hang on a second. Okay, I might have to round this up, guys, because well, I thought we were on here for an hour and 21. Well, let me just scan these comments, see where we are. I appreciate you for joining, everyone. If you've not already smashed the like button, could you please do that for me? I know it's just a really silly thing, but it does help with the YouTube algorithm. And it means that once this live is over, it indicates to the algorithm that you've enjoyed it. And the algorithm will then likely share this to other people who might also find this content useful. So it only takes like a second, but it really, really does help the channel if you do that. So if you can smash the like button, that will be absolutely amazing. I think at this point in time, show it to me. What do we have? Show it to me. It's got not giving me the data. Oh, we've only got 36 likes right now. So if we can get it up to like maybe 50, that would be absolutely amazing. Cheers. Yeah, Martin's just saying here, I'm really looking forward to the post budget live Q&A. Hopefully there will be something even just a little bit to smile about. Mate, I'm with you on that one. That I cannot tell you. I just hope that all of this has just been smoke and mirrors, or just flood it with bad news and we won't do anywhere near as bad as what's been rumored. I hope that is going to be it. But we'll see. I'm going to be in Dubai on the 30th. We've got a 3-hour time difference. I'm out there for a month again. But I'll probably do a live reaction and then do like a summary video with a real breakdown of what it is and all that kind of stuff, and maybe some post commentary and stuff like that as well on the 28th and the days following that. Um, Dylan, yes, I am. I'll be doing one live on the day. Um, it's nice to at least sit with the gloom together, a little kind of comforting, and at least we're in it together. And I think that is the big thing. Is I think at the end of the day, a lot of this stuff is very, very confusing. A lot of this stuff isn't necessarily things that we're used to talking about, right? And like one of the things that I want to do with this channel is let's talk about things. And some like for the most part, a lot of the content that I post is generally like really positive. Like this is how to do things, and this is the implication with some kind of takeaway to empower people. But I think in times like this, it is also nice to be able to sit with the difficult things as well. Because look, I say this all the time, but it is the truth. Because everything from an economic point of view it always runs on cycles. Like the markets will go up, the markets will come down. Economies are going to grow, economies are going to falter. The point is, what do we learn in circumstances like this where it feels as though the economy is not growing, it's not going the way we want it to? We'll come out of this for sure, But what do we learn now to put us in good stead so that when the next time this happens, we don't feel as much pain? We can be financially insulated as much as we possibly can. I remember the financial crash in 2007, 2008. Mate, my financial situation was so much worse. So much worse. I mean, I don't even think I had like a solid job at the time. It was horrible. Now, I can talk about these things knowing that, at least from a financial point of view, I have some kind of insulation because I've learnt the hard lessons. I've had to learn all the hard lessons on my own. And I've got to the point where, okay, I have some financial insulation around me. I don't have any debt apart from the mortgage that I have on this house, which is relatively small at this point. I have good financial emergency funds and buffers around that. So it means that it doesn't matter what happens, I know that I can support myself financially for an extended period of time. And when we talk about this conversation about financial independence, financial security, I think one of the fundamental things that we miss as a society is the fact that you cannot get to financial security, financial freedom, whatever it is that you're going to call it, until you actually get to financial stability first. Unfortunately, people want to skip financial stability, get to financial freedom, and you just can't. It's impossible. If you cannot learn the skills or understand what you need to be financially stable, and you can secure yourself so you're financially stable, you're never going to get to freedom. You're never going to get to independence. And that's what I talk about across my channels. It's not necessarily sexy. I don't talk about, 10x investments and all this kind of stuff. It is relatively boring, but the foundational stuff is what you build upon. And that's really the purpose of the channel and why I do what I do. And that's why having these kind of conversations are so important, because if you want to be in a better position the next time we find ourselves in this kind of economic landscape, well, financial stability and building yourself some financial stability is going to mean that you're going to insulate yourself greatly. And you can look at it and think, well, actually, yeah, pretty crap, but I've got options and I'm going to be okay. And you'll be able to say that with a good degree of confidence. And that's what I talk about. That's what I, teach on the videos. That's what I do in coaching. That's what my book is all about. That's pretty much what the podcast is all about. It's all about those fundamental things that you need to create financial stability. And I honestly feel like once people get to financial stability, everything else is so much easier, especially if you can protect yourself and put some bubble wrap around that financial stability. It's a beautiful place to be. You can think laterally, you can be a little bit less stressed out, and you can really kind of like take a step back and invest opportunistically as well. We don't get taught this stuff in school, and it really is just a shame. Anyway, guys, thank you so much. Appreciate you for watching. It's an hour 27. I will catch you on the next one. It won't be next week because I will literally be prepping to I'll be packing next week this time to get on a flight on the Monday. So I'll see you. I will see you next week in some videos. But after next week, next Sunday, I'll be in Dubai. So I'll see you from Dubai. Catch you later.